In this video, I'm looking at how to set up Bootstrap 4 so you can use it in your next project, so stick around. My name is Kevin, and here at my channel we learn how to make the web and how to make it look good while we're at it. This has to be one of the most requested, no, not one of the, it is the most requested subject I've had, which is making a website with Bootstrap, and we are going to be using the Bootstrap 4 alpha. So there are a few things with this that will probably be changing in the near future, but the overall workflow I think should be staying pretty much the same. Bootstrap's a really awesome tool, and it's important that we use it properly, and the setup is the thing that we need to get right to be able to use it properly. I'm going to be using Sass in this video and in this series, and only importing the things that we need to really be using in our project, and just how to, there's a whole bunch of different ways we can actually get Bootstrap onto our thing. It's not just necessarily the download button, so we'll be exploring how to use npm and a bit of Bower to get that set up in this video. So to get started with our Bootstrap project, what we need to do is actually download Bootstrap, and there's like a million ways to do this. So I'm going to show you a couple of different ones and give you my opinion on them, and they're just my opinions. When you go to download, and I am on the version 4, so if I go to their normal site, getbootstrap.com, they are in alpha still, the beta is coming, but you can see there's this link at the top, oh yeah, Bootstrap 4 is coming. So if you go, it says v4/alpha.getbootstrap.com, and the beta is, I think, somewhat close to release, so this might be a little bit different when you get there. There's a bunch of fixes coming to the beta. So if I click here on download Bootstrap, it gives us all of the different options we can use to download it. So the first one is the one you should not do. Don't download this one. It's a giant file for nothing. There's no real reason to get their CSS and JavaScript. If you're just going to be using this and you want to overwrite it with your own CSS, you might as well link to the CDN. At least that way, if other people, if someone's gone to your site and they've been to another person's site and they both use the CDN, it could be catched in their system and it will speed things up a little bit. So I don't really see the point in doing that unless you only want to use something like the grid, because if you download this, you can get access to their grid only. And if all you're going to be using is the grid, then that's fine, obviously. You can also just click here and download all the source files. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. That's going to give you their Sass and everything. As it mentions, it needs a Sass compiler. You'll also need an auto prefixer and some setup and stuff. Their setup in the system they uses Grunt, so it's all set up to use Grunt. You just have to make sure Node's installed. You get install Grunt, and then when you do an install, it's going to run and do a whole bunch of stuff automatically. The only thing with this is if you don't have Jekyll set up on your computer, you will run into some issues with it. So you need Jekyll, and to set up Jekyll on a PC is a pain in the butt. I've done it on mine, but it's not impossible. It just takes a little bit of extra time. And Grunt, when it's compiling your CSS, is pretty slow. It felt like forever every time I was using Grunt to compile it. So I don't use this. I'm going to be using Prepros like I have in all my other videos while I'm doing this. But that's, if you want to go that route and use their setup, there's nothing wrong with that. That's their setup. You're going to be getting, if they're doing it that way, there's some good stuff to it. Or you can use a whole bunch of different package managers. There's npm, RubyGems, Composer, Bower, NuGet. All of these are using the command line. And I want to show you guys how to use the command line. I'm not the most comfortable person in the command line, but I do see the value in it, and there's a few things that I do know how to get my way around, so I thought it'd be fun to look at them. The first thing that's really important for these is to go and download Node.js. So you just go to nodejs.org, just do a search in Google for Node.js, and click on this one and download it. When you do that, it's just a nice simple installer. So it's just going to give you a little installer like that, that you can you click on it, where do you want to install it, click next. It's a nice little walkthrough. And what that does is it installs Node.js as well as npm, which is the Node package manager. And that's going to be required for Bower, which we're going to use. The other thing that's required for Bower is Git. So where is it? It says somewhere in here. There we go. Bower requires Node, npm, so we're covering both those bases when you download this. And it requires Git. To make sure Git is installed on your computer, just go to desktop.github.com and download their desktop application. Download for Windows. I'm on a Windows. You can download it on your Mac. That's going to install everything you need on your computer as well. Same thing, just tell it where you want to install it, click next, and you're fine. And with that done, you can go and install Bower, and that's super easy to do. And you might be going, why am I doing all these steps when I can just come here and click download source? It's a good question. The advantage with this is if you can get comfortable with using the command line is every time you want to start a new Bootstrap project, you won't have to go to the Bootstrap website and then go to there and then click download source and then find your file in the download folder and unzip it and then drag it over to the other folder. It does take a little bit of setup the first time, but once you get used to it, you'll be able to work a little bit faster, and it's an entry into the world of the command line if you're not used to it, where a lot of the things I'm using prepros for, you can do auto prefixing automatically. You can, they have some Flexbox fixes that they're running through in their package as well. If you're using other cool things, you can do that. You can have the auto refresh. There's a whole ton of really cool stuff that you can have set up through that. So to do that, I'm going to move my screen a little bit here. I don't usually show my search bar, but down here in my search bar, I'm going to look for Git Shell. This is really similar to the command prompt, so you might be used to the command prompt. And if you're on a Mac, just open up Terminal. You'll be fine. You might also have heard of PowerShell. PowerShell? Maybe, maybe not. The Git Shell pretty much is PowerShell, but with Git running in it, from what I understand. So I'm going to open up the Git Shell and move this back to where I want to record. And as you can see, it looks just like any old. It just looks like a command prompt or whatever don't know if you're used to seeing this stuff. I used to use a DOS computer, so I'm kind of used to it. So I'm currently in my GitHub Documents folder, and that doesn't really matter right off the bat. Let's go check out Bower. And it says to install it, you just have to type this. Now, anytime you're looking at anything for these things, whether you're on a Mac or PC, just ignore the $ here. The $ is just letting you know it's talking about a command prompt. You're only worried about this stuff here. So let's jump in and I'll explain a little bit what we're doing. So we're doing npm, which is Node Package Manager, and we got that when we installed node.js. So we're telling Node Package Manager that we want to install Bower, and then we're doing a /g, and what this is, global. That's the same as writing /global. We want to install it on our entire system. We're not taking one folder. I don't want to install Bower in this folder. I want to install it globally on my system. And it's just easier if you just type /g, so it saves some strokes. And so I want to do a global install of Bower, and I'll hit return, and I wait while it does this, and it doesn't take very long to do. So for whatever reason, mine hung for a little while. So if it takes a while, just let it go. The first time I'd installed it, it went really well. For this video, I uninstalled it and then reinstalled it for demo purposes, and it just hung there for quite a while. I was about to cancel out, but then it just clicked through. So if it's taking a bit of time, give it that time. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to get into the folder that I want to be working in. So if you don't know anything about this, if you do cd, that's change directory. So I can change directory and go where I need to be getting to. But sometimes it's a pain in the butt when you're not, if you're doing small changes, sure. But when you want to get into something bigger, it can be a little bit harder. But there's actually two ways you can go about it. I can do a cd and I can go and find my folder. So my folder is on my desktop right here. So let's move it down so we can see it. I can open up that folder and I can right click and choose copy address. And so I can do cd, do all that, and then paste that in there, and it's going to work fine. But that's kind of long, that took me a while to do. So another thing that I can do, and I think this is really cool, and you can do this on Macs as well, I believe, is do your cd and then just drag the folder right there. I don't even think you have to drag it there. Just drag it into here. It's going to put enter, and you can see now I'm on my desktop and I'm in the band. And now that I'm there, I can go ahead and install Bootstrap. So if I click over to here, we can go and look, and it's really easy to do. The only reason I had to come here is if you're using version 3 or once version 4 is live, you'll just be able to do a Bower install and put in Bootstrap. If I did that now, it would install version 3. But because I want to be using version 4, I do need to put in the version that I want to be using and all of that until version 4 goes live. I'm going to hit enter. And this is going to take a while. It's not too long, but it's going and it's finding all of the different things that it needs. And there you go. It's done. So it didn't even take very long. So you can see once you set this up so that, it takes a while to have all of this set up. But once it is set up, All you need to do is open up your PowerShell or your Git Shell or whatever you're going to be using, type the letters CD, drag your folder in there so you know you're in the right place, and then you just have to do a bower install Bootstrap, hit return, and Bootstrap's installed. So it doesn't involve you having to go and click through and do a whole bunch of weird stuff to try and get where you're going. Downloading files, unzipping stuff. It's super easy and fast and all of that. So it's definitely worth getting used to using the command line. I really think it's worth it. And just to show you what that gave us is I already had these images. I already got all my images ready. But here in the Bower components, if I jump into there, you can see there's the Bootstrap. So all of my Bootstrap stuff is in here. There are some things in here I'm not going to be using just because it's set up for their grunt system and all of that. It is giving me, you can see their grunt file right there. But it is giving me the files I need in there. It's also giving me jQuery and Tether, which is something that's required for Bootstrap now. It's one of the things they've added to Bootstrap 4 for a couple of their JavaScript functionality things. So it gives us everything we need to be able to use it pretty much. Now, to get that to work, as I mentioned, I do use Prepros. This is really similar if you're using a program like CodeKit, and if you're on Mac, you're probably using CodeKit. Prepros is both Mac and PC. It's not very expensive. There's also, yes, allow access, please. There's also other programs out there that are free. Prepros does cost money, so does CodeKit. They're not too expensive. I think Koala maybe is the one that's free. I don't have any experience with it though, so I don't know about setting it up exactly. So what I'm going to do is I want to add that project into Prepros here. So I can just click and drag that, or I could have just pushed this plus button and found it. You'll notice that the Bower components isn't being watched by Prepros. So if I go to my settings here and I go to File Watcher, that's one of the things. If I brought it in with Node, I would have the same thing. So you can see here all the things that are they're not being watched for updates and all of that. And that means if I was going to actually work inside of this, Prepros wouldn't compile any of the code that I'm working on because it's ignoring this folder. So obviously I don't want it to be doing that, and I think I just closed Prepros by accident there, and I want to keep that open because I'm going to be using it. What I want to actually do here is I want to copy some of the things that are in this folder into my own area where I will be working on them. But I don't want to take everything because most of this has already been done. The only things I want are this custom.scss file and one more file, which is all the way down here, which is my bootstrap.scss. So I'm going to take them and then we'll go and look at what those actually are. So I'm just going to select both, Command C, go all the way down, all the way back to my root, make a new file. I'm going to call it SCSS. Now you see some people in here will just put the Bootstrap stuff, or they'll make one other thing. I treat this like a normal project. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to do a vendor, and my Bootstrap will be inside of there. I guess I could just call it Bootstrap as well, but it's vendor. And so let's go take a look at what these actually are. So I have to open those up in Atom. So let's just right click on here and do open the whole project with Atom so we can take a look at what's going on in there. If you know Atom, sometimes it can take a while to open up. Oh, I didn't open it. So let's go take a look. Vendor, custom, and Bootstrap. So the Bootstrap is their big import file. It's importing all of the things that are going on into one file that will get compiled into a CSS file. And if I go and I look at the custom, this is where they're setting it up to override any variables that you want to override. So if you want to override your colors or you want to override anything at all, we're going to be taking a look at their variables in the next video. It's an insane file. It's really cool and really powerful. So instead of working off of their file, we want to work off of our own file. So that's what I'm going to be setting up to do in this video. So you can see here variables, there's the custom being imported right there. The thing is, I didn't take everything out of their original one, right? All these things that it's trying to import other than custom are all the way over here. So what I want to do is I actually want to come down here and place my cursor on all of these. So I'm just pushing Control on my keyboard right now. If you're on a Mac, you can push Command on your keyboard and just hold it down and just keep clicking away to select them all. And we're almost there, we're almost there. There is a lot of them, but this saves us so much time because we can just type something once. So what I'm going to do, I don't really need to scroll back up, but I'm currently in this file. So I need to go, so I'm in my vendor. I need to go into my SCSS, so back one step. Then I need to go back 1, 2, because I want to go back into the root. Then I want to go into my Bower, underscore components. And then I want to go into Bootstrap. And then I want to go into SCSS. And before you click on anything, go all the way to the very front here and comment it out. So this is what's going to make Bootstrap work for me in my project. I don't need to bring all of that stuff in. Now, a lot of this stuff I will be. My variables I definitely want to use. My mix-ins I'll definitely use. Custom I'll definitely be using, except custom I didn't need to change. Custom's staying right there. Normalize I will definitely use. Print I will definitely use. Just so you know, they've added this reboot, which is their personalized version of the normalize. So they're taking normalize and sort of putting some of their own opinions into it. And starting with the next version that will be released, or whenever the beta comes out, this will be the only one. You won't actually see a normalize file anymore. They're putting everything into one file instead of having it two things working off of each other. Type I want, images I want, code I don't need, the grid I definitely need. Tables I'm not going to use, forms I'm not going to use, buttons I will. And the cool thing with this is if ever you decide to add some stuff in later, you can always come back through here and add it. So I don't need any button groups. Maybe later on my project would get bigger, I'd need a button group. All I have to do is take that out and all of a sudden I can use my button group. Nav and navbar I will be using. Cards I will. This has replaced wells and one other thing. Badge, Jumbotron alert, progress, media, list group, responsive, embed, close. I don't think I'm going to use any other JavaScript, and the utilities I will be using. So what this is doing is it's making a much smaller CSS file when all of this finally gets compiled. It's going to take all of this, but I'm not taking everything. I'm only taking the things that I want to be using. So that's one of the nice ways of using Bootstrap properly, or only using the parts of it that you actually need. And not having this big bloated CSS file for nothing. Now before I save this, just because of the way Prepros works, it's going to compile it right away. What I want to do is make a new file, save this, and I'm going to call this file main.scss. So I just want to make sure I'm, oh yeah, I was in the right spot actually, main.scss, and I'm going to hit save, and bring in Bootstrap will be the first thing I do. So I'm going to do an @import, and we're going to import vendor/bootstrap. And I'm going to hit save. Hopefully that compiles properly. Let's hit save here. I think I ran into a problem. I did, because that is exporting this, which I don't want. So I'm going to delete that. Now let's go look at Prepros to see what the problem is. I might have made a mistake. That looks okay. Let's try this one more time actually. Ah, it worked. Okay, I needed to save my Bootstrap, this file, before I saved that one, just because I'd made all these changes. Just to show you the error log actually. The first time I tried to do it, it was trying to just import variables. It couldn't find that, so I got an error. I saved this, so it wasn't looking for just variables, it was looking for it in the right place. It made an extra file, which sort of sucked. I had to delete that file. Then now I could work properly. And everything should compile properly. And we're good to go. So that's how we set things up properly. In the next video, we're going to be looking at setting up all our variables. So we're going to explore a little bit of the variables file in the Bootstrap that they give us, and how using the custom file in the SCSS we can modify everything. And it just, once we start doing the markup, with that done, a lot of it's just going to fall into place because Bootstrap does so much for us. So it's going to go pretty quick after that, I think. So thank you so much for watching. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. If you have any comments, any questions, just leave them on down below. And until next time, try and make your corner of the internet just a little bit more awesome.